I was sitting in my car in my mother's driveway, staring at my banking app. 6 months of transfers, $5,000 each month, $30,000 total, every single one marked for the family. And 20 minutes later, my mother sat across from me at her dinner table and told me I had no idea what responsibility looked like. She said my sister Solstice was the successful one, the independent one, the daughter who did not need anyone. I put my phone on the table, screen up, and I said, "Perfect, then my $5,000 monthly transfers end today." What happened next is something I am still processing, and I think you need to hear the whole story from the beginning. Before I get into it, I want to know where you are watching from right now. Drop your city or your state in the comments, and if this kind of story is something you connect with, the ones about family, about money, about finally deciding enough is enough, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. Because this story does not end at that dinner table. Not even close. My name is Seren. I am 32 years old. I live in Huntsville, Alabama, and I run a YouTube channel that I built from absolutely nothing. But before I get to any of that, you need to understand where I started, because nothing that happened at that dinner table makes sense without it. My mother's name is Donna. She is 58 years old and grew up in a small town on the outskirts of Huntsville. She got married the first time when she was 20 years old. She got pregnant with me that same year. That pregnancy was not planned. That marriage did not last. My biological father left before I turned 2 and he did not look back. He did not send money, did not call, did not exist in any real sense after that. So from the very beginning, I was the child who came from a mistake. Not a child who was loved and then lost. A child who was the evidence of a decision my mother regretted. I did not fully understand that when I was young. I understood it the way children understand things they cannot name yet. I felt it in the way she looked at me versus the way she looked at my sister. I felt it in the silences. I felt it every single time I tried to get her attention and watched her eyes move past me to something else. My mother married Warren when I was 6 years old. Warren is a civil engineer, quiet, steady, the kind of man who does not raise his voice. He never once treated me differently from the moment he came into our house. He came to my school events when he found out about them. He left $20 bills in my jacket pocket before I left for school on test days without making a big deal of it. He called me his daughter from the beginning, and he meant it. But Warren was not the one making the decisions about how I was seen in that house. When I was 8 years old, my mother had Solstice. And I want to be clear, I do not blame Solstice for any of what happened. She did not choose to be the favorite. She did not choose to be the child my mother planned for, the child who represented the fresh start, the good decision, the marriage that worked. But Solstice was all of those things to my mother, and from the night Solstice came home from the hospital, the balance in that house shifted in a way that never corrected itself. I can give you specific moments, because they are the ones I have carried for over 20 years. When I was 9 years old, I got a perfect score on a math test. I brought it home and held it out to my mother while she was cooking. She said, "Good job," without turning around. That same week, Solstice said her first full sentence, and my mother called 3 different relatives to share the news. When I was 12 years old, I placed second in a county-wide writing competition. There was a small ceremony at the school library. My teacher told me it was a big deal, that students from across the county had submitted work and mine stood out. Nobody from my family came. Warren did not know about it because I had stopped mentioning things to my mother and Warren heard about things through her. My teacher gave me a certificate and a $10 gift card to the bookstore. That was the whole celebration. When I was 14, I asked my mother for money to buy a set of study guides for the upcoming standardized tests. She told me there was no extra money right now. The following weekend, she drove Solstice to a birthday party in Birmingham and bought her a new dress for the occasion. I did not bring it up. I already knew what the answer to that conversation would be. At 15, I started working at a grocery store 3 afternoons a week after school. I told my mother it was because I wanted spending money. The real reason was that I needed to stop asking for things and being told no. I saved up for 4 months and bought a second-hand laptop from a classmate whose family was upgrading. Nobody asked me what I planned to do with it. Nobody noticed. What I did with it was start making videos. I did not know what I was doing at first. I watched tutorials for free online, read every article I could find about how YouTube worked, filmed myself in my bedroom with the door closed, and deleted most of what I made. But some of it I kept, some of it I posted, and slowly, very slowly, a small number of people started watching. I applied to college entirely on my own. Researched schools, wrote my essays, applied for financial aid, applied for 2 scholarships and received 1. I told my mother I had been accepted 3 days before I left for orientation. She said she was glad it worked out. Warren shook my hand and then hugged me and told me he was proud of me. On the morning I left, he was the one who helped me carry my bags to the car. My mother did not come to my college graduation. Solstice had a ballet recital on the same day, and my mother had already told the studio she would be there. I found out 2 weeks before the ceremony. Warren sent me flowers to my dorm address and a card that said he was sorry he could not make it and that he thought about me every day. I graduated with a degree in communications and a YouTube channel that had grown to 30,000 subscribers over 4 years of uploading while carrying a full course load and 2 part-time jobs. I moved back to Huntsville, found a small apartment, and kept going. The first 2 years after college were genuinely hard, not in a dramatic way, just in the grinding, relentless way that building something from nothing actually is. I uploaded consistently. I studied what worked and what did not. I learned how to talk to a camera the way you talk to a person. I learned how the algorithm rewarded certain things and punished others. I made mistakes and adjusted. When I was 28, my channel crossed 1 million subscribers. When I was 29, it crossed 2 million, now at 32. I have 4 million subscribers and a steady stream of brand partnerships with companies I would have considered out of reach when I started. I have a small office in downtown Huntsville, 2 staff members who help with editing and scheduling, and a brand manager who handles the larger contract negotiations. My monthly income is consistent and well into 6 figures. I do not say any of that to be impressive. I say it because it is the context for what happened next. Solstice is 24. She graduated with a degree in fine arts and works as a junior designer at a small firm in Birmingham. Her salary covers her basic expenses, but not much more. She had always lived in a financial cushion provided mostly by my mother, which in turn had been provided by Warren's income during his working years. 6 months before the dinner that changed everything, my mother called me on a Tuesday afternoon. I picked up because I always picked up when she called, which was not often. Her voice sounded different that day. Tired in a specific way, not the tired from a long day way, but the kind that comes from worrying about something for weeks. Warren had taken early retirement because of a health issue with his back. His pension payments were delayed in processing. Solstice was behind on rent. My mother did not ask me directly. She talked around it. She mentioned the numbers, mentioned the timing, mentioned that things were tight in a way they had not been before. I understood what she was not saying. I told her I would transfer $5,000 a month into her account. She said thank you. I said of course. I set up the automatic transfer that same evening and I labeled every single one for the family. I want to be honest about why I did it. It was not purely out of generosity. Part of me believed that contributing financially was the one way I could participate in this family without being rejected. I could not make my mother see me differently. I could not undo 20 years of being treated as an afterthought. But I could give money, and that would be useful, and maybe useful would be enough. 2 months into the arrangement, Warren mentioned in passing during one of our phone calls that Solstice had gotten her rent caught up, and that Donna had helped her get a used car sorted out as well. I did the math on what my mother had said her expenses were, and I realized the money I was sending was going almost entirely to Solstice, not split among household needs, to Solstice specifically. And Solstice did not know where the money was coming from because my mother had not told her. To Solstice, it looked like their mother was helping her out, which is what Solstice had always experienced, their mother taking care of things. I kept sending the money. I want to explain why because it might seem like I was waiting to use it against them, and that is not exactly what was happening. I kept sending it because stopping felt like proving a point, and I was not ready to be that person yet. But I started keeping records. Screenshots of every transfer, bank confirmation messages, a short note I saved to my phone each month with the date and amount. I did not know what I would do with any of it, but I kept it. During those 6 months, my mother called me 4 times. Every call was about something related to Solstice or to Warren's health updates or to something happening in the house. Not once did she ask how the channel was doing. Not once did she ask if I was okay. I was transferring $5,000 a month into her account, and she did not ask a single question about my life. Warren turned 65 in October. My mother organized a small dinner at the house, just the 4 of us. I bought a cake from the bakery Warren had mentioned liking, the one on the north side of Huntsville, that does the kind of dense, not too sweet frosting he preferred. I arrived on time and walked in through the same front door I had walked through my whole life. The first part of the evening was normal. Warren asked about a project I had mentioned on the channel. I told him about the new series I was launching in November. He asked follow-up questions because he genuinely wanted to understand what I did and how it worked. Solstice was at the table too, mostly on her phone, occasionally adding a comment when something in the conversation caught her attention. Then, somewhere around the halfway point of the meal, my mother set down her fork and started talking about Solstice. Promotion first. Solstice had been moved to lead designer on a small internal project at her firm. My mother described it as a significant step forward. Then the independence. Solstice was handling her finances now, my mother said, managing everything on her own. No help needed. And then she looked across the table at me and said it plainly, without lowering her voice or softening it in any way. This is what responsibility looks like, Seren. Solstice does not need to rely on anyone. She stands on her own 2 feet. You could learn something from watching how she handles herself. Warren put his fork down. I did not raise my voice. I did not push back immediately. I looked at my mother and I asked calmly, "Are you sure about that?" She said yes. She said Solstice was independent, self-sufficient, the kind of person who figured things out without needing to lean on other people. The implication about me was clear. I reached into my bag and took out my phone. I opened my banking app and navigated to the transfer history. 6 months of records, $5,000 each, sent on the same date every month, every single one labeled for the family, every single one timestamped and documented. I turned the phone screen toward my mother and placed it on the table in front of her. I said, then we are all set. If Solstice is managing everything on her own and does not need any help, I can stop the transfers. Today's payment was the last one. Solstice stopped scrolling her phone. My mother looked at the screen. She looked at me. She looked at the screen again. The table went silent in the specific way that happens when something has just shifted and everyone present can feel it. I watched Solstice's face go from confused to understanding in real time. She had not known. I could see that clearly. Whatever she had believed about where the money was coming from, it had not included me. Warren looked at me across the table. He did not say anything. He did not need to. Solstice stood up first. She said she needed some air and walked toward the back of the house. My mother began talking, explaining that the money had gone toward family needs, that there was nothing wrong with how she had handled it, that I was being unfair by framing it this way. Warren said quietly that Donna should think carefully about what she had said tonight. She did not respond to him. I left before dessert. I drove home with my phone ringing before I had even made it out of the neighborhood. Solstice called 7 times in 20 minutes. I let every call go to voicemail. I needed to drive and not talk. The following morning at 9 a.m., Solstice walked into my office building. My front desk assistant came to find me and said my sister was in the lobby and wanted to see me. I brought Solstice into the small conference room and closed the door. She looked like she had not slept. She said immediately that she had not known the money was coming from me. She said she thought our mother had been helping her the way she always had, that she had no idea Donna was passing along money from someone else. Then she asked if I could continue for just 3 more months while she figured out a plan. I looked at her and asked, "Did you hear what our mother said to me last night?" Solstice did not answer right away. I told her I was not ending the transfers to punish her. I told her I was ending them because I had been sending $30,000 into this family while being told at the dinner table that I had no idea what responsibility looked like. I said that continuing after that was something I was not willing to do, not out of anger, out of self-respect. Solstice said she understood. She did not try to argue. That afternoon my mother called. The first half of the conversation was mostly her explaining her perspective, saying I had misread her intention at dinner, saying she only wanted to encourage me to push harder. I let her finish. Then I said, "Call me again when you are ready to have a different kind of conversation." I ended the call. Warren sent me a text that evening. It said, "I am sorry I did not speak up sooner. You have deserved better than this for a long time." I read that message 4 times sitting in my apartment. Warren had always known. He had seen what was happening in that house for years and had tried in small ways to counterbalance it. But he had not said this to me directly before. Reading it felt significant in a way I could not immediately put into words. I did not cry that night. I sat with everything that had happened and I let myself feel whatever came up without pushing it away. What came up was not rage. It was something closer to a very old tiredness, the kind that comes from holding tension for such a long time that when it finally releases, the feeling is not relief exactly, but stillness. 2 weeks after the dinner, my mother called again. The difference in her voice was real enough that I stayed on the line. She asked if I would meet her for lunch. She specified just the two of us. I agreed, but I chose the location, a coffee place near my office that I knew well, not her home, not a restaurant she picked. She arrived on time. She looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. She ordered, sat down, and then looked at the table for a long moment before she said, "I do not know how to start this." I did not help her start. I waited. She said she had been thinking about the dinner every single day since it happened. She said she knew, sitting there now, that what she had said was not fair. Not just the comment about responsibility, but a pattern that had been going on for much longer than 6 months. She named it herself without me prompting her. She said she had treated me differently than Solstice for years, and she had told herself reasons for why that made sense. But sitting across from me right now, she could not make those reasons hold up. I asked her the question I had wanted to ask for most of my life. Have you ever been proud of me? She took a long time before she answered. Then she said yes. She said she had been proud of me many times, but that every time she looked at me she also saw herself at 20, making choices she spent years regretting, and she had never learned how to look at me without also seeing that. She said she knew that was not fair to me. She said she was telling me because she did not want to keep carrying it as something she had never admitted. It was the most honest thing my mother had ever said to me. I did not tell her it was fine. I did not reach across the table and say everything was forgiven because it was not that simple and she deserved an honest response, not a comfortable one. I told her, I need you to see me when you look at me, not who you were when you had me. She nodded. She did not make a promise she could not keep. She just nodded. 3 weeks after that lunch, Solstice asked if we could meet, not at my office this time. She suggested a coffee place that was neutral ground for both of us. I said yes. She came in looking different from the morning she had shown up at my office. Calmer, but in the way people get calm after they have pushed through something uncomfortable rather than avoided it. She told me she had been doing a lot of thinking. She told me she had known for a while that our mother was managing money in ways she did not fully examine because examining it would have meant asking questions she did not want answered. She said out loud, I know how that sounds. It sounds bad because it was. I told her I did not need an apology from her. I told her what I actually needed was for her to stop living inside a system where someone else quietly carried her financial weight while she believed she was standing on her own. I said that system had been bad for both of us in different ways. I offered to connect her with a friend of mine who does personal financial planning and works with people in their 20s who are just starting to build real financial structures. Not charity, not me handling anything for her. A resource. Solstice said yes without hesitating. A few weeks later, Warren and I had breakfast together, just the two of us, which had not happened in years. He said he had regrets about not standing more firmly between me and the way my mother's favoritism played out when I was young. He did not make excuses about why he had not. He just said it plainly, as a fact about something he wished he had done differently. I told him he was the reason I had not walked away from this family entirely a long time ago. He did not say anything after that. When we stood up to leave, he hugged me first. He had not done that in a long time. This morning my mother sent me a text. It said, "Are you free for dinner tonight? I made the pasta you used to like when you were little." I sat in my car in her driveway for a few minutes before going inside, not because I was hesitating, but because I noticed the difference between this moment and the last time I had sat in this same driveway staring at my banking app. 6 months between those two moments. A lot of distance covered. My channel just passed 4.5 million subscribers. Last month I signed the largest brand partnership I have ever had, a year-long agreement with a company whose products I had actually been using for 2 years before they reached out. I have taken on 3 mentees, young content creators who are earlier in the process than I was, and I meet with each of them monthly to talk through what they are building. My apartment is mine in a way it has always technically been, but now feels completely true. Solstice has been paying her own rent for 4 straight months. She picked up 2 freelance design clients on top of her regular job, and she mentioned last week that she had opened a savings account and put something in it for the first time. She said it almost shyly, like she was not sure it was worth mentioning. I told her it was absolutely worth mentioning. My mother has not transformed into a different person. That is not how people work. But she asks about my channel now without turning the conversation towards solstice within the first 2 minutes. She sent me a link last week to an article about a content creator who had done something interesting with brand storytelling and said she thought of me when she read it. That is new. That is something that did not happen before October. I walked into the house tonight and put the pasta dish on the counter. Donna was already at the stove. Warren was setting the table. Solstice arrived a few minutes after me, slightly out of breath, said she had gotten stuck in traffic coming from Birmingham. Nobody made it into a bigger moment than it was. We just sat down and ate. The dinner 6 months ago ended with me placing a banking app screen on a table and saying $30,000 worth of quiet generosity was done because I refused to be called irresponsible by the person I had been quietly sustaining. Tonight ended with my mother asking if I wanted the leftover pasta wrapped up to take home. I said yes. Here is what I have learned from all of it. You cannot keep funding a version of yourself that the people around you refuse to acknowledge exists. At some point, the most honest thing you can do is stop proving your value through what you provide and simply state what you know to be true. What you give should come from genuine care, not from a need to earn a seat at a table you were already supposed to belong to. Stopping that transfer was not about the money. It was about refusing to let silence be mistaken for acceptance. If any part of this story stayed with you, I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever been in a situation where you were giving something, time, money, energy, and the people receiving it did not even know or acknowledge where it was coming from? What did you do? Drop your answer below because I genuinely read what you write there and these conversations matter to me. If this video meant something to you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you are not subscribed yet, now is a good time. There are more stories coming, real ones, about family and money and the choices we make when we finally decide our own well-being is worth protecting. Thank you for being here and for giving this story your time. I hope whatever you are carrying right now gets a little lighter. Take care of yourself, genuinely.